Hey guys, it's 11/22/22, lucky day, and we are seeing the markets go up. Today, I'm just going to keep it simple because we're right in front of the holiday. I'm just going to talk about Taiwan Semi, which I know a lot of people are starting to do work on if they didn't already do work on it with the announcement of Mr. Buffett having taken a pretty big position there. And I'm really thrilled because I've been waiting for something like this in the semi space to start to give me a sense for where to pick up some interesting opportunities across the entire sector. But let's go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to share my screen, set up what, is 2 days before Thanksgiving in the US markets, and then we'll get into it. Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Let's see what we got here. Okay, sharing the screen. And you can see that we are on the day very green. You've got all of the major indices up, and that's despite the fact that they kind of started all over the map this morning when you first opened the day. Crude oil finally coming back over 80. There's so much gamesmanship, and I was reading the Reddit boards and all those other things to just see what people are saying in energy sector. And we're just in this kind of dead period for noise, but we have talked about for many, many months, even before the shoulder season, as we've talked about in the summer, occurred. And that is that you can game energy as much as you want, but when it starts to get cold, we will all know whether or not you were gaming it or not. It just becomes clear. So I do think that if you're shorting energy, or if people have been playing that game, they're going to want to take a pause going into Christmas, into December, because it gets really dangerous to do it. All right. If we look at Finviz, you know how much I love Finviz. You can see most of the screen is green today. Santa Claus rally, no Santa Claus rally. It's still kind of hard to tell at this point. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I do think that Santa Claus rally or no Santa Claus rally, there definitely are some companies that are really cheap. And Taiwan Semi totally made sense to me that he would be out there buying it because the nature of Taiwan Semi. So let's actually just stop share for just a second to put this for some people that don't already know a ton about semiconductors, let alone Taiwan Semi. Taiwan Semi is one of the major global foundries that you can find. And also they make the ever so wonderful, ever so desirable small nanometer chips. Okay. So these are going to be your 5mm and your 7mm. And just to give you a sense for it, China's mostly making 10 nanometer, I think is where they start to be able to make them. In your car, I think is primarily 10 nanometer. And then Intel's fabs here and a lot of the fabs that are being built here, they are not going to carry this really, really small chip. And Taiwan is really the place that makes it. It's also part of the reason why the US is very adamant about supporting Taiwan. I mean, if we're honest, that's not me guessing. You can just look at the semiconductor report that was printed by the White House right when Biden went into administration. All that stuff is public record. So if you're going to start looking at semiconductors, start there. Absolutely read that white paper, and you can take a look at that. So now let's talk about Taiwan Semi and what happened on the quarter. So just do a quick recap of the quarter and why I'm excited that Warren's buying it and what might be the bigger implications to the sector. Sharing the screen again. This was what we saw on the quarter. And you can kind of see I'm going to increase the size of this. Taiwan Semi, it's an interesting call to listen to because this is a Taiwanese company. It's not an American company. It is done in English. Actually spotless, perfect English. They do have a translator, but everyone's English is so good. It's almost remarkably funny that there's a translator. So if you are doing your due diligence on this, I do recommend you listen to the call. As you can see, everything's really reported in NTD. And so it can be a little bit harder to see what the results are, but this is the year-over-year number that you're going to look at in Taiwanese dollars. And you'll see that revenue was up 47, almost 58, excuse me, 47, almost 48%. Gross profit was up 74%, and so on and so forth. I mean, it was just a really, really strong quarter. And one of the things you always have to remember about companies that are on the US is that they do not necessarily have the same issues with strong dollar. And in this case, Taiwan Semi actually benefited from the currency situation significantly more because, you got to think they're not based in the US. And so their costs actually then look a certain way relative to the strength of the dollar. Okay, now I think it can be very important Did they beat guidance? Yeah, they did. And this is partially due to currency. So you can kind of, but really it's just very strong performance and continuingly strong demand in for the types of semiconductors they make. And you can see they beat guidance on revenue, they beat guidance on gross margin, they beat the operating margin number, so on and so forth, right? Now, I also want to just mention, though, that I do not just go by guidance. Like, I won't penalize as aggressively as the street will for missing guidance unless I really think that there was something truly wrong. So, because currency can throw off guidance as much as anything else, I do oftentimes hate doing that. But I do want to point out for Taiwan Semi, because their beat was off of guidance numbers that were aggressively crazy. I mean, this is like very strong growth. Okay. Now, here are the mix of their platform. So 41% is still smartphone. That's the bulk of where the revenues are. And yet you can still see strong growth. So that's despite, handheld devices being a little bit weaker, so on and so forth. But you can kind of see where the areas of growth are that help them. And then finally, I just want to show you this on the geographies. And it really demonstrates how important 5 and 7 nanometer, like it's the biggest part of their business. So it is actually correct to think of Taiwan Semi as being in that higher end portion of the semi space. Additionally, it is also very much so correct to think of the other fabs that are coming on board that are making much a different type of wafer technology, let's say it that way, as non-competitive to Taiwan Semi. So that I totally get as to why Mr. Buffett would be really thrilled. Right now, Taiwan Semi is trading cheaply because it has gotten clobbered with literally everything else, realizing that if we can get a little bit of a calmness, let's call it, situation between China and Taiwan, then this thing pops up along with everything else that's China related. So despite the fact that you would think Taiwan, China, isn't that what the conflict's about? No, if we can just get everyone to kumbaya a little bit more, then Taiwan Semi, just like everything in the China related sphere, if you will jump up as well. Now, I also want to just show you that net revenue by geography, North America is still their biggest area. And that's because, believe it or not, the US has the most semiconductor companies, but we offshore so much and then bring it back onshore. It's this like really crazy cycle. We might have to just do another episode, but we used to do these episodes in the January, February timeframe where we talked about the semi industry as a whole. But this is a very quick look at Taiwan Semi and why we're very bullish this particular stock. And you can look at it on a price to sales basis. You can look at it on a price to earnings basis. In fact, let me just do that really quick. Let me stop share for a second and just show you. Sometimes it's a little bit hard when you are doing foreign stocks to make sure that all the data is currency lined up, as well as all the share classes are counted. But this is going to be more or less correct. Actually, let me double check. Yeah, this is going to be more or less correct in the system. No, the EBITDA number may be slightly off, but I'm going to share really quick. Okay, if we go into Yahoo Finance, 14 times is probably approximately correct for a company that's growing. Like I said, earnings is growing a lot more than that, hence very, very cheap. Also strategically in a strong place. I think this EV to EBITDA number is a little bit off. It is trading probably under one time, its historical rate, but this is a little bit aggressive. And with that, I will stop share and take any questions. I mean, look, if you're going to do Taiwan Semi in this kind of really volatile market, you could consider doing a calendar spread. I actually think Taiwan Semi is a good, because the volatility isn't so crazy expensive, and because this thing wobbles more in the front than it does in the back, because we are waiting to see what happens with just global geopolitics. If you go back into like April, May, June, on the $100, which is still fairly undervalued if you really look at what Taiwan Semi can do if we just everyone calms down. And so if you bought the 100s in June and sold the 100s in December, it's a 20% upside move. But if we resolve things and people chill out, this thing easily is a double. So, you've got through Chinese New Year. So you're basically shorting the period before Chinese New Year is going long 2 quarters from now, hoping that there's peace around the world.
Yeah, in May it's that they've been at 145.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of the entire semi complex is beaten up, right? Like as soon as I finish all of the calls that I like to finish for a quarter, the semi space is absolutely a place to look for Christmas presents.
Not a Chinese threat.
What's that?
The fact that Warren Buffett bought so much, that means there's not a Chinese threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, China, I don't think has any interest in creating a global military conflict in any way, shape, or form. Nothing in the history of China, nothing in the behavior of this particular guy, no matter what you want to say about Xi Jinping, he has not been a warmonger at any point. I mean, nothing at all would indicate that China, I mean, I know some people are going to hear this and get really pissed because they're going to be like, well, what about the missiles they shoot? They always do that, quite frankly, when there's a regime shift. And that you can go through the history of like pretty much Deng Xiaoping to now. Although with Deng Xiaoping, we're not 100% sure if he was alive 97 to 99, but that's, look, I say that and Chinese people know that that's true, but they'll giggle and won't comment. So like, I mean, it's,
well, he just does not want a military presence in Taiwan.
It wouldn't make strategic sense for him to do anything with Taiwan right this minute. And even I would say it would probably be like at least 5 years, I'm going to say, before it would even be something that should be looked at from his perspective, like until the next term. And I say that because number one, I think the next big move for him is to resolve the whole COVID economy situation. Now that he's in and he's the head of China for life, more or less, let's call it what it is. I mean, I'm sure they will still continue to have elections, but whatever that is, but there's no other real, it's not, I mean, he has to fix the economy right now. And oddly enough, that mostly the Chinese government has done what it said it's going to do for the last like 2 decades. I want to almost say 3 or 4 decades. So it would be strange for them to decide to do an aggressive military conflict for Taiwan. It's off timeline, number one, and also it would ruin what they've actually just spent 20 years trying to do, which is tie Taiwan's economy incredibly tightly to China. That they more or less have done at this point. Anyway.
I just don't think they want a big military, U.S. military presence in Taiwan. I mean, that makes sense.
They do not. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
They definitely don't. And if you look at where the bases are, like doubly so, because there's already a base in Korea, a base in Japan, base in the Philippines. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of military presence in Asia. So it's not like it's fun for China to have all of that on its border and then Putin to the north. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's not. There's a real reason. 14 countries on your border. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And look, just in case it's not clear, because not everybody thinks in terms of military, and definitely here in the United States with only 2 countries on our borders, 14 countries on your border means 14 different possible people that the US could negotiate with if it came to it. That's the issue for China, why it really doesn't like to go to war, so to speak.
Right. I also read that Tesla turned in a large order with TSM for the automated driving chips.
Yeah. I mean, they would definitely, the Internet of Things is a real thing, and Taiwan Semi's chips are the way that you would get that to happen. So yeah, I mean, you need a very small chip to do the thing that you needed to do if you're going to have that much data going up and down into the sky and then down and then processed through correctly in the speed that you want it. The other use
Yeah,
cases of that chip are like visual data.
right.
So if you just think of all these different things as very fast calculations, if you want your video game, if you want any visual data, if you want any like very responsive, highly responsive data, you're going to need to have very tight chips that are communicating with each other in a very specific way. It's actually as simple as that, but as complicated as that. But yeah, if you want that car to drive by itself one day.
Right, right. And I mean, Tesla 169 still, I mean, if somebody wants to really like build a position, this is the time to do it.
This is really the time to do it. I mean, I've joked with you trying to, and I've just barely drawn short of doing the math on a piece of paper versus just doing it in my head. is Elon selling past the money that he needs, and then like he's just gonna buy it all back? What he's doing. It's so weird because right now Tesla's so undervalued. Right? Like, I don't know if people have done the math on it, but like if the thing is going to grow almost 80% this year on a conservative estimate, right? 80% this year, which would actually indicate slowing growth, not even an aggressive growth rate, right? Like it'd have to slow to 80% growth on earnings. Okay. If that's what it's going to do, then your peg rate of 30 something or your 4-year, 5-year growth projection of 30 requires that it either somehow have a couple of massively bad years of single digit growth somehow. I mean, like the math just doesn't, like, right. If we take it from like 200% earnings growth, because, right now it's in that one period where it's on its curve. Operating margins have expanded through the year, et cetera. So the numbers are going to look crazy and you're going to have, like, I mean, I don't know what the 30% growth rate is. Is it a 5-year growth rate? And you're saying that's where it will terminally be at 5, because it certainly wouldn't be a 5-year CAGR. So it doesn't, like, some of the ways that people are spinning this in articles, it doesn't totally make sense to me. And then there's like such a massive focus on if we just take the autos number, like this guy Barron comes out and is like, I'm thinking it's 4 trillion, which is, by the way, like a 6-bagger from here. I don't know if people notice. So let's say he's wrong by half and it's 2 trillion, and people are like trying to do the math on the numbers and they're like, it's like unclear. I almost did a slide on it. Maybe I'll do it a different day. Their math is wrong, is what I'm just saying, because they're using a growth rate for autos at one point, then they're using a growth rate at EV, and then they're not using the EV, they're not readjusting for the fact that the IEA thinks 60% of the market in 2030 will be electric vehicles, not gas vehicles, but that actually implies an even bigger shift in like the entire market. So it's like, I don't know. We're just all going to have to suffer through this as Tesla owners, buy puts every now and then, or sell calls every now and then.
I'm reading, it says Tesla now trading at 21 times 2023 full year earnings. That's really cheap.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We still have a massive auto shortage. And I think people looking at the used car number
is because technically it looked really bad, but
yeah,
also technically there's a thing called a bear trap. So like you said before, when it starts up, I mean, it's going to be hard to catch.
man, I'll tell you, yeah, it's going to be. And I guess like your next real data point for Tesla, I think they announced their auto sales like monthly or something. So we'll kind of see there. And it's tough because November is going to be a funky month because they switched up their pricing in China a certain way. But Christmas, I don't think they're going to have a problem. Do you know what I mean? I'm even trying to think about like, what could they possibly say? Like, so do they, I have no idea what the bear argument, like most of the bears have come out with arguments that just say the market cap is very large, which is not a way to value a company. It's like saying $1,000 Louis Vuitton is too high a market cap relative to all of their purses.
When a
Any,
ton of people are buying it at $1,000, right?
well, a Louis Vuitton bag, if you get it at $1,000, you need to buy it right away. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You should
good
actually
point.
not even think twice because it's not $1,000 bag.
That's your point.
Yeah.
The demand is there. Okay, thank you, May.
All right. Have fun. Take care, guys. Bye. See you tomorrow.